Let's talk about how we talk about love. I mean, it's one of the biggest, most important experiences in our lives, right? But what if the language we use for it, the words we reach for, are actually kind of broken?
Just think about it for a second. When a new relationship kicks off, what's that one phrase we always use in English? I'm willing to bet you know exactly the one I'm thinking of.
Yep, that's the one. We fall in love. Now, when you hear that, what pops into your head? For me, it's like a cartoon character just walking along, minding their own business, and then, whoops, they just disappear down an open manhole. Because falling, that's not the same as jumping, is it? It's not a choice.
So, our main metaphor for starting a relationship is that it's an accident, something totally uncontrollable that happens to us, whether we want it to or not. This language literally makes us sound like passive victims of some random event, and that's how we describe one of the most significant choices we can make.
And believe it or not, it actually gets a little darker. The problem goes way beyond just the word falling. A lot of the language we use for love is really wrapped up in these ideas of violence, of sickness, and even madness.
I mean, think about these phrases. We get struck by Cupid's arrow. We have a crush on someone. We swoon or pass out. We burn with passion. Love makes us sick. Our hearts ache. And then, of course, they break. You see the pattern here? Our metaphors constantly connect loving someone with being in some kind of extreme distress.
Okay, my absolute favorite example of this is the word smitten. You know, when you're totally smitten with someone? Well, it's the past tense of smite, and it has two definitions, a grievous affliction and to be very much in love. And the word smite is most famous from the Old Testament, where it's used to describe what an angry God does. So we're using the same word for love that's used for a plague of locusts. How wild is that?
So, how did we get here? To figure that out, let's just zoom in on one of these metaphors, this idea that love is basically a form of madness. It's an idea that, as you'll see, is baked right into our culture and, weirdly enough, our biology.
If you look back through Western culture, this idea is everywhere. Shakespeare said it pretty bluntly in As You Like It. Love is merely a madness. Straight up, he's just calling it a form of insanity.
And it wasn't just playwrights. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said pretty much the same thing, suggesting you can't really have one without the other. This isn't just poetry. It reflects a really deep-seated cultural belief about what love is supposed to feel like.
And this is not some old, dusty idea. The great modern philosopher Beyonce Knowles brought this concept to a whole new generation. I mean, the idea of being crazy in love is still everywhere we look.
And all this creates this weird kind of feedback loop. Our words, our songs, our stories, they all teach us to expect love to feel chaotic and painful. The author of the source material tells this story about being 22 and heartbroken in a hostel in South America. And a small part of her was thinking, wow, this is so dramatic. This must be real love. She expected her first love to feel like madness. And surprise, surprise, it did.
But okay, here's where it gets really fascinating. From a brain chemistry perspective, romantic love and mental illness can actually look pretty similar. A study from back in 1999 discovered that the serotonin levels in the brains of people who were newly in love were almost identical to the levels in people diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. You know that feeling when you can't get someone out of your head? Well, there's a real biological reason for it. Now, before you start to panic, there is some good news. This super intense, obsessive, crazy phase, it doesn't last forever. Researchers think this state usually fades out after a few months, maybe a couple of years at the most. It's more like a temporary biological launch sequence to get the relationship off the ground, not the permanent state of being.
So, if our old metaphors about falling and being crushed are just setting us up for drama and feeling like victims, what's the alternative? We need to change our expectations. We need a new metaphor, one that puts us in the driver's seat.
What if instead of falling in love, we thought about stepping into love? All of a sudden, the whole experience shifts. It goes from being passive and accidental to being active and intentional. It becomes a conscious choice. And that simple change in wording, it changes everything.
In their amazing book, Metaphors We Live By, the linguists George Lakoff and Mark Johnson came up with this really powerful new metaphor, thinking of love as a collaborative work of art. I gotta say, I really like this way of looking at it.
So, a collaborative work of art. That sounds pretty good, right? But what does that actually mean when you're living it day to day? If love is something you create together, what does that imply about how we should actually do it? Well, think about what it takes to make any piece of art with another person. It takes effort, right? And compromise. It requires patience and having shared goals. You absolutely need communication, discipline, and a healthy dose of creativity.
These are the tools you need to create a masterpiece, and it turns out, a pretty amazing relationship.
Looking at love this way is just so empowering. It completely flips the script. It's no longer this thing that just happens to you, totally outside of your control. Instead, love becomes something that you actually get to make with somebody else.
This version of love isn't a game. It's not about winning someone's affection or being afraid of losing them. Instead of thinking about what you can get or what you might lose, you start thinking, what can I bring to this collaboration? What beautiful thing can we build together?
The truly beautiful thing about a collaborative work of art is that it doesn't just paint or sculpt itself. This new way of thinking gives us the power, the agency, to decide exactly what our love looks like. So the final question isn't, when are you going to fall in love? It's, what kind of love will you create?